back. Dan Fulkerson here with Lemons to Lemonade podcast. We had a pretty long break for filming podcasts just with COVID and everything else. Had to move the studio. It's a new look around here. We moved it down to my office because the dogs took over the old studio. But we got my friend Tim, and I want Tim to be able to introduce himself, and then we'll kind of go into what we're going to talk about today. So, Tim, if you want to just kind of introduce yourself, who you are, what you do.
Sure. My name is Tim. First, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course.
And my name is Tim Garlin. I work here in San Diego for Alliance Escrow as a sales manager. Pretty much what that entails is chasing real estate agents and loan officers around town all day. Enjoy photography, basketball, football, staying as active as possible, and just enjoying San Diego and what everything it has to offer.
And shooting guns.
That too. Forgot about that.
Tim's been going to the Glock store, and I've been watching his stories on Instagram. And I'm like, man, where are you at? And he's like, come with me. So I've gone the last 2 weeks, and I'm addicted again. I'm back into it, so it's been a lot of fun.
And you're doing really, really well.
I appreciate
really
the invites, man. It's a great time. And I wanted to have you on because you and I met. I think we met through Xandra originally.
Correct.
And then we went out to lunch, and we were talking about basketball. And then you brought up that one of your passions is education of men's health. And you kind of went into what your background is and why you came to have that be on the forefront of what you push and educate in November. We're filming this in November. You're going to see this in December. It's going to take a week or so to edit, but November is Men's Health Awareness Month, correct?
The Movember movement.
The Movember movement.
No mustache for me, though. Doesn't work.
And I want you to kind of give a background on why this is so important to you.
Sure. Well, I'm a prostate cancer survivor. Cancer-free now for 4 years, thankfully. But having gone through that, it just became a passion of mine to share and tell my story and educate as much as possible. I was very, very fortunate to find out that I had it, as odd as that sounds.
How'd you find out?
I switched insurance carriers, and I had to switch doctors, and just going for my initial exam with the new doctor to meet her, get a chart going and whatnot. And she asked me when my last physical was done. And I said, I have no idea. It's been years.
Yep.
So she said, okay, let's go ahead and get a full panel done. And she says, how old are you? And I said, I'm 42. And she said, well, you're a little bit young for a PSA exam. But let's go ahead and check that box anyway.
And PSA is the prostate screening?
Yes, that's the prostate screening. It's just part of the blood panel. And a couple of days later, she called me to come in, and my PSA levels were elevated, which was concerning.
Yep.
And
at the time, because we've all had those weird things that pop up in doctor's appointments. How was your level of concern that first phone call? Nah, not a big deal, just got to follow up, or was it?
Well, not really knowing what that meant at the time. I said, okay, I'll come in. And then I got there, and she said, okay, your levels are high for somebody your age. So let's try some antibiotics, and let's try this for about a month and see what happens. So I went through, took all the meds for a month and did another blood panel and came back the same. So we said, okay, what's the next step? So I went to a urologist, had to have a biopsy done. And so the time from the biopsy until the day that I had to go in for the results, a lot of anxiety because I knew
the time frame?
It was about 4 days.
Okay.
But at that point, I knew what it meant. I knew what I was being tested for, and I knew what the possible outcome was.
So you're sitting there doing your WebMD shit and
unfortunately,
unfortunately, we all do.
Yeah, and
symptoms, treatment, worst case scenario, oh shit.
Yeah, and the one thing that I can tell anybody out there is, if you do anything, if you feel something, go to the doctor and stay off the internet. Because you stub your toe and you go down the rabbit hole, it's going to lead to cancer.
Well, and I think that's a really important point, because energy in the way the way your body deals with stress and anxiety feeds stuff that's at least my belief, right? And so you can put yourself in almost a more toxic state by going down that internet rabbit hole and working yourself up.
And so to backpedal just real quickly, I had no symptoms. Absolutely
You're
none.
perfectly fine, working out, living your life.
Yeah, no symptoms at all, which was, obviously that's why I never went to the doctor for anything. So within that 3 or 4 day period that I was waiting for the results of the biopsy to come back, was a little anxious. Had a lot of support around me. And then had to go into the doctor's office that day, and I went with my then wife and mom and dad. And they called me and they said, okay, Tim Garlin, come on back. And I just said, oh, you know what? I want to go by myself first. And so I go back into the office, and it was kind of weird in a way that the guy was so casual in how he told me. He was doing something else, and he finished up what he was doing, and he pulled my chart out and he said, okay, yeah, you have cancer. And I was like, okay. And he said it to me so casually, it almost relieved me to a degree. But hearing that word and knowing that you've been told that you have it, it set me back after that. Like, the initial delivery, I was like, okay. And then I was like kind of freaked out. Yep. So I go out, get the family, bring them in, and we just discuss next steps.
I want to go back to that moment.
Sure.
Is it one of those like deep breathing gut punch type moments, where is it one of those like the world fucking kind of sinks in around you type moments? Like, what was the surreal shock? Like,
it didn't hit me that day. It didn't hit me that day. It definitely didn't hit me at that moment. I more went into, and again, he said it to me so casually, and it's like, okay, I said, okay, I'm going to go get my family. They came in, and then we just went into solution mode. Yeah. And that's kind of how I handle most things. Yeah. But this was obviously a little bit bigger than most things. So we just said, what are we going to do? And he just put my options on the table. And those were do nothing and we monitor it, which was not an option. Yeah. 2,
which is, I'm ignorant. How is that even an option?
Well, because they say, and again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm just going off of memory. They say it's not a very aggressive cancer, so we can monitor it.
Got it.
But I didn't want that. Second was treatment, radiation, all that stuff, and I didn't want to go through that. Yep. Third option was remove the prostate. Yep. Had those options, go home, have the discussion with the family, and being married at the time, kids were, for me, I was 42. Yep. And but the now ex-wife wanted kids, and so we discussed it and said, okay, well, if we have it removed, one of the post-surgery side effects is that you're sterile. Yeah. So we agreed that was the choice we were going to take, but we talked to the doctors and they said, the likelihood of you still getting pregnant is still high. Yeah. So I went to the clinic and did what I had to do there. Yep. Yep. And froze and we tried a few times and that didn't work. Yep. So that was okay. Yep. But then that was the path we chose. And from that point on, I just said, let's get rid of it. Yep. And what are we going to do after that? Yep. So that whole process took about 2 months before I actually went into surgery. And the poor people at the hospital, because I was calling so much, was like, when do I get to come in? When do I get to come in?
Take this out of me.
Because in my head, I have cancer now, yeah. Right? And I'm freaking out. Yeah. And they said, Tim, you're okay. If this was urgent, we would be getting you in faster. Yeah. But there's 2 options for the surgery. One is the old method, which is where they put a pretty big incision in you, about, 4 or 5 inches long, right at belly button, lower. And then the other one was the robotic version, which is what I chose. Way less invasive.
Always go robotic. From knowing surgeries, orthopedic spine surgery. Yeah. I go robotic every single time.
Yeah. And
shout out to you.
And
my favorites.
And I had to go through some other testing. I had to do a full body bone scan. I had to get a colonoscopy done, and all this is at 42 years old. Yep. And the colonoscopy was a full colonoscopy, so I got knocked out, and that was not an issue to me at all. And then I had to have a full body bone scan, which, you go in, you drink the dye. Yep. You go in later that day, and it's basically just like a big tube that goes over you and goes back. Everything was clean. Then surgery. And as the coolest thing about the surgery, if there was anything cool about it, was as I'm being wheeled into the operating room, they said, there's the robot that's going to do the surgery, and there's where your doctor is going to sit.
Yep. It's insanity.
And for those that have seen the movie Iron Man,
yep,
when he's in his basement playing with the robot, that's the machine that actually performed the surgery. And it was impressive to see what actually did the surgery.
4 years ago.
And it was 2013. So
7 years ago.
7 years ago. So you go post-surgery, I had to go get blood tests done every 90 days for a year. And then every 6 months for like 2 years. And now I'm back onto the once a year. And then after 3 years, I was declared cancer-free. And it was a relief. I never did anything different. I had to go through some challenges in rehab. One of the potential post-surgery side effects is incontinence. For those that don't know what that is, it means you can't control your bladder. So I had to wear a catheter for 2 weeks. Had to wear Depends for about 6 months. Just didn't want to have any accidents. And then after that, free and clear with that one. That was a little mentally challenging. Yeah. And then the most serious potential long-term side effect is impotence. And that has been the most challenging thing that I've ever encountered in my life. Yeah. Marriage, divorce, part of life. Yeah. But the mental battle that you struggle with that as a man.
Yeah.
My joke about it, to make light of it, is in the movie Austin Powers, when he has his mojo taken away. Yeah. That shit's real. Yeah. That shit's real. And I struggled with it for about 2 years. Yeah. And it's a mind fuck, yeah. Because that's, sad or not, that's kind of how we identify ourselves. That's we're hunters and conquerors and whatnot. It's
built into us genetically.
Yeah. And when that's gone, yeah. and you can try to fight it. You can try to fight it and try to say it's not that big of a deal, but it just constantly just beating on you. It lasted about 2 years, but now I'm as functional as a 50-year-old can be. Yep. Thank God. Never went through the why me phase ever. Never just laid there and said, oh my God, I can't believe this happened to me, because my number was punched. It was like, pull a number and okay, deal with it.
Here's my hand. Let's go.
Right. Let's go play it. And that's why I share so much. That's why I do things like this. I do something every March because my cancer-free birthday is March 27th. And I do something every November.
Because this was like, most people I'm like harassing to get on here, right?
Right.
And you're like, no, I want to share this story.
I think I asked you to do it.
You did.
Yeah.
And you're like, I want to share this.
Yeah.
And I so appreciate it because it is a true passion for you.
Oh yeah. I share my story as much as I do, mostly because, it's very important. Yeah. People hide behind it, and I never fought cancer. Yeah. So I feel I owe the world, if you will, my story. Yeah. The very first time I actually told it was kind of a funny story. Being in escrow, one of the things we do is we go to real estate caravans and we speak in front of rooms of realtors and say, hey, our service is great. Come work with us. And I had all that planned. And I'm standing in front of the room. I'd passed out all my stuff about the company. And I'm looking in the room, and there's 4 or 5 other escrow companies there. There's a bunch of title people. There's lenders and there's realtors. And I just said, you know what? And I said this in front of the room. I said, I was going to talk about real estate. I was going to talk about my company. I was going to talk about it. But I said, you know what? Fuck that. And people looked at me like, well, where's he going? I said, none of this shit is important unless we're here and healthy. I go, look, there's 3 or 4 other escrow people here. This guy's great. This girl's great. This girl's great. Title, escrow. You guys are all going to work with who you work with for your own reasons, right? I'm not going to talk about that today. I said, I'm going to tell something far more important. And still to this day, I have people come up to me and say, I remember that story and thank you. And, the one thing that I'll say, and I say it often, is they say don't start getting tested until you hit 45 or 50. I was 42. And where my PSA levels were, and I wish I remembered the specific number, but they were extremely elevated for somebody at 42 years old, to where they told me at some point in my life, if I chose to just monitor, they said at some point in my life, it was going to have to come out because I was only 42. So my thing is, most guys think that the prostate exam is a finger in your butt.
Yeah.
Who cares?
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Who cares? It's a blood test.
Yeah.
And, you know, if after you get the blood test, there's something there and they need to put their finger in your butt, I couldn't bend over fast enough, knowing what I know now.
Yeah.
And as far as a colonoscopy goes, same thing. You're going to get knocked out. You're not going to know any different. You know,
so many people do the ostrich thing though when it comes to their health. Like,
yes.
Even if they think something's wrong, like put my head in the sand, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's like not opening your mail. You know, it's like that's important shit.
Yeah.
You kind of have to. It's part of life.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I'll tell you, and I want you to know this, and I've never told you this, is after sitting and talking to you, I'm 36 years old. You know, I try to keep myself as healthy as possible, but I live a very stressful life.
Right.
And I'm aware of that. And hearing your story, I went and I found a doctor that's like more of a wellness clinic.
Sure.
And I go in 4 times a year, once a quarter, do a full blood panel 4 times a year. I know it's overkill. I'm aware. But I at least know that I'm then doing everything that I need to do to stay on top of my shit.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so at 36 years old, I'm doing that. And the cost is not overly burdensome. It's just me popping in 4 times a year to get my blood panel done and then to review it and make sure that I'm dialed in. And I think it's something that no matter what your age, why not? We're spending money on stupid shit. If you're going to buy a new iPhone, you better be spending the money on your health and to check yourself out, because that iPhone doesn't mean anything as soon as you find out something's wrong with you. And that's really the question that I have for you, is because this podcast is about perspective. And it's about going through something that will change your life in perspective. Is when you find something out like that, the dumb shit that you're worried about in life and all the other little concerns kind of go away. What was your perspective shift?
Well, you know, I've always kind of lived a carefree life and kind of had the whatever attitude, you know. Unfortunately, I tell people all the time I didn't grow up until I turned 40.
Yeah. So there's hope for me.
Yes. But before I go any further, did you get a PSA done?
No, I did not.
Oh, you haven't yet?
Oh, I got the blood panel done for the PSA.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
I have not had a finger in my butt yet.
Well, you haven't needed to.
Yeah, but I got the PSA blood panel. I got full blood. I mean, it's remarkable how many tests that they did the first time. I was there for 5 hours at this physical.
So you got you went in there.
I did the blood scan, the full body scan. Okay.
But you specifically asked to have the PSA included because of the story I told you.
I didn't even have to, because he said we're going to do it. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I didn't even have to.
Awesome.
Lee Rice, by the way, Dr. Lee Rice is in Point Loma. I cannot speak high enough about him. Just a fantastic guy. Fantastic primary care.
And I want to put a huge thank you out to my surgeon, Dr. Cameron Wilson. Thank you. You truly saved my life.
Where's he at?
He's in La Mesa at Sharp Grossmont.
Awesome.
So perspective, like I said, pretty carefree, but that was a pretty big thing that happened, and it just made me slightly more aware. Made me never really had that, oh my God, I'm going to change my life. I got to do this different. I got to do that different. Because I was, healthy. When I was younger, I did my fair share of partying, but I had stopped that already anyway. So the perspective that changed was to help and tell my story and just share my information. And I tell people that, why wait until they tell you should start getting tested? Because had I waited until they say 45 or 50, I don't know how much further the cancer would have progressed. It could have metastasized outside of the prostate. I might not be here, and so I'm truly thankful for the family practitioner that said, let's check that PSA box. So, really the only thing that truly changed in the mindset is share your story as much as you can. And I tell people all the time, go get tested. It's not that big of a deal. And women out there, if you know a guy 40 or older, friends, family, it doesn't matter who, just tell somebody. And
you should be asking for it. Ask for the PSA
Yes.
screening. Ask to make sure.
Yep.
And then when you're getting your blood results, specifically ask about that result. And then nothing can be missed. They can't, not check that box because you're on top of it. But that's part of it, is taking ownership of your own health.
Yeah. And it's scary, obviously. Some of the videos that I've done, I just do them on my own, off my phone, and post them on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And I've helped 3 people step by step through the entire process, from finding out to having surgery to post-surgery. And it's been truly rewarding for me. One of them happens to be a friend of mine locally that, more of a work acquaintance, I'll say, reached out to me after she saw a video, and she had immediately asked if I would speak to her dad. And I talked to him all the way through the entire process. And that's why I do it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's why I do it.
It's amazing. If anyone has questions for, Tim on this, you can reach out to me. I'm going to be putting Tim's information up as well. I can't say enough good things about Tim as a person. And I think that him coming on here and sharing the story, it's not easy to talk about your health. It's not easy to talk about things that you go through in life. And for you to be so willing and want to volunteer the information to help other people is just huge. So again, I'm going to be posting all the information. Anyone ever looking for good escrow, I cannot speak high enough of him as a man and his character. And for me, that's the type of people I associate in my life, and those are the type of people I do business with in my life. It's people that are built the same way as me and care about other humans and spread kindness. And so thank you for coming in. We're filming this on Thanksgiving.
That's right.
Came in on Thanksgiving to film this.
Well, so did you. So thank you.
Of course. No, but happy Turkey Day, man.
You too.
I appreciate you more than you know. I hope you guys enjoy this. Please, final thing, go get checked. If you're over 40, please go get checked. Ask for a PSA screening. Don't hide your head in the sand. Make sure that you take your health and take ownership of your health and make it a priority, because it's all we have. And I tell that to every client that comes in here. I'm like, I'm not going to talk to you about money. And if the case for you is about money, you probably need to find another attorney, because my firm belief is your health is the most important thing you have. And without it, money doesn't mean shit.
Nope.
And it's a truth that I know, because I've handed checks to people for millions of dollars and they don't have their health anymore. And they'd hand those millions of dollars right back to you just to be healthy. And so please don't take this as anything. It's not a lecture. It's nothing. It's just a public service announcement for myself and my friend Tim to go get yourself checked to make sure you're healthy.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.